Werner stinks. I'm not going to change my opinion of it because he's now signing for Spurs. He stinks. The player I've seen over the last 3 years, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I'm not going to pretend that I've watched something different over the last 3 years for the sake of it. Yes, people, what is good? It's Tapping Tobes here. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning back in. I thought, you know what, since it's the FA Cup weekend and there's no Premier League football for another week, let's actually talk about some transfers. Let's talk about some transfers. Straight off the bat, I think we all know who I'm going to talk about. Timo Werner. A lot of moving pieces in this deal. Timo Werner has essentially accepted a proposal to join Spurs on a 6-month loan deal with an option to purchase outright for around 18, 19 million euros. But I wanted to talk about Timo Werner, man. I really did, because I feel like this is very much a signing that I feel like we're not really seeing people's true opinions of, because one, Spurs are doing quite well. Two, well, there's a clear view on how he fits from a profile perspective. And three, because obviously it's January and it's typically quite difficult to sign like long-term players in the January transfer window, either due to price, clubs not letting players go, etc., etc. So there are all sorts of factors that you have to consider with January when trying to buy players. Now, back on Timo Werner, I'll be blunt. I do not rate Werner anymore, right? This was not the opinion I had of Timo Werner years back, right? Before Timo Werner joined Chelsea years back, I thought, you know what? This guy looks a good player. He looks like he can score goals, even though he's got a lot of issues to work on, right? I felt the same way about Richarlison. I felt the same way about Darwin Núñez. But when players show you who they are over a prolonged period of time, sometimes you have to believe them. Sometimes you have to believe them. This is who you are. And who Timo Werner is, in my opinion, is not a good enough player for Spurs. Not in 1 month's capacity, not even in a 6-month loan capacity, not even in a 12-month loan capacity. He's not good, period. He's not a good player. He's not a good player, in my opinion, right? And I've got my notes. Because obviously we have to talk football. It's not just agendas. We have to talk football, back it up with facts, back it up with solid, rational opinions, right? So the argument for having Timo Werner is we need his profile. He's fast. He's presses hard. We need those type of attackers. Checks notes. We've got those type of attackers already. We've got Brennan Johnson, who's rapid, fast, and maybe he might not be as aggressive a presser as Werner, but he can press. We've got Richarlison, who's a super aggressive presser. The talk in the summer was Richarlison would suit this system because he presses from the front, which is what Ange Postecoglou wants, right? So you've got Brennan, who's got pace and presses. You've got Richarlison, who's got pace, well, not pace, but he presses. You've got Son, who's going to be back in a couple of weeks, who's got pace and presses. Versatility, he can play across the front three. Brennan Johnson plays on the right, Brennan Johnson's played on the left. Brennan Johnson can also play through the middle. Richarlison has played on the left, can also play through the middle. Son has played through the middle, can also play on the left. So all three are versatile, right? If you want to chuck in Kulusevski's played right wing and he's played in number 10. Cool. And Kulusevski's also an aggressive presser. So in my opinion, we've already got attackers who are in Werner's mold. I was calling Werner a rapid version of Richarlison. I believe that because they're similar players. Now, we already have that profile on the team. Here's where my concern is. Yeah. When I say Timo Werner, I don't think he's a good footballer at this point in his career. I'm saying that because of what I've watched, not just at Chelsea, but for Germany, and then subsequently for Leipzig when he went back to Germany, right? This is a guy whose technical security is in the pits of hell, right? When I've watched our front line this season without Werner, my main concern is outside of Kulusevski, yeah, and to be fair, Son, when he's played through the middle, Son has actually done it to a good extent. But when Son plays out on the left, he can't keep this ball properly. He's done some good work. He's mashed some good work on the left, but he can't keep this ball properly. He can't retain the ball properly, and he struggles to consistently beat players. Richarlison, he can't retain the ball. He's terrible at it. He can't keep the ball, right? He can't keep the ball. Brennan Johnson, similar-ish. Not as bad as Richarlison. He can dribble, he can beat plays here and there. So we have 4 attackers who have featured prominently for us this season in Richarlison, Kulusevski, Son, and Brennan Johnson, and only one of them is actually capable of like retaining the ball and fashioning consistent chances. Brennan Johnson thrives when there's spacing behind. He wants to run onto things. Son wants to run onto things. Richarlison wants to run onto things. They're not guys who you can use as a consistent outlet to try and keep the ball and absorb pressure. Timo Werner is only going to exacerbate this problem because he's coming into this team and he has not enough technical security to keep the ball under pressure. His finishing is shocking. We've moaned about our attackers' inability to convert their chances outside of Sun this season. And yet we're signing someone who statistically has one of the worst big chance conversion rates in the Prem, right? You look at his Prem statistics, taking only big chances, right? Big chances in the Prem. He had 31 big chances. Out of 31, he only scored 8 of them. That is a 25.6% conversion rate. Do you know how bad that is? For context, Richarlison's, who everyone at Spurs, or a lot of Spurs fans say, oh my God, he's an awful finisher. We need to sell Richarlison, which I agree with. I think we need to sell Richarlison in the summer. Yeah, Richarlison's big chance conversion rate is around 41%. And this is someone who really can't finish, as we've seen this season. Even if we go off this season, 12 big chances, statistically, he's received, according to data. 12 big chances he received, 6 scored. So he's converted 50% of these big chances this season. And that's someone who was saying he's not good enough for Spurs. And rightly so, because he's not good enough for Spurs. He doesn't score enough to make up for all of the nasty things he brings to the game in terms of his lack of hold-up, his lack of technical security, right? His lack of ability to duel sometimes, all for the sake of pressing and a couple of goals. So we just need to apply that same logic with Werner. The same frustrations we have with Richarlison, we're going to have those same frustrations with Werner because they're similar players. Low technical quality footballers, inability to consistently retain the ball under high pressure. They can't really dribble at players constantly and beat them. Werner needs to run into space. When you put this guy up against a deep block, rendered null and void. Spurs have been looking for someone, me personally, I was looking for someone on that left-hand side. Not even a world beater. I'm not expecting a world beater in January. I'm not expecting a worldie in January at all. No, I get it. I understand the cost pressures because we're trying to sign a centre-back. We may sign a centre midfielder if Højbjerg leaves. There's not enough cash. There's not a limitless pool of cash, especially after not getting European football this season. I understand that. But what I don't understand is signing a player that exhibits all the bad traits that we don't like about our attack this season and is not bringing enough of the traits that we feel we need, that are missing. That's what I don't like about this deal, yeah? So as I said, doesn't operate in tight spaces, can't retain the ball well enough. Finishing is in the pits of hell right now at this stage of his career. Technical security all over the shop, right? Upgrading guys in our team who we already deem not good enough for someone who may not be as bad as them, but also isn't good enough, does not make them an adequate upgrade, in my opinion. So when I talk on players like Werner, I'm hearing, oh, he's better than Gil, he's better than Cess. Cess has been a non-entity. That was his first appearance the other day, right? And Gil, he's only had 2 starts in the Prem this season. And yes, he's coming off the bench. And yes, Bryan Hill's not good enough for Spurs. I can admit that. He's not good enough for Spurs. If I had it my way, I would sell him in January. But that doesn't mean I would replace him with someone who is stronger than him, but is also going to give me a different kind of frustration. A different kind of frustration. I'm still going to be frustrated. The only difference is I'm going to be frustrated by someone who's missing chances and losing the ball as opposed to someone who's keeping the ball and doing nothing with it and getting barged off it. I'm still going to be frustrated. So are we really gaining lots from this deal? Yes, it's low risk. Yes, it's not an obligation, but it doesn't change the fact that this guy, for me, is not a good enough player at this stage of his career. And the last point is, oh, who else will you sign? Who else will you sign? I'm not a scout. I'm not a scout. This is a club that brought us Vicario using data. This is a club that brought us Van de Ven using data, right? Fans say Werner's the only player we could have signed, whilst simultaneously acknowledging that Spurs moved towards a model started by Paratici, where they literally pick out 5, 6, 7 options that could all do a job for the team. So believe you me, Werner was not the only option available for Spurs. There was one name that was being bandied around, Jota. Again, I'm not even banking my hopes on Jota, like I'm not. But that's one name, that's just an option that actually plays as a winger and has worked with the manager before. That's just one option. Werner stinks. I'm not going to change my opinion of it because he's now signing for Spurs. He stinks. I want him to do well. I want Werner to do well. I don't want this to be like oh my God, it's a hate campaign. I go to every Spurs game. I'm going to be supporting the team. If we can get Maddison into the team, if we can get Maddison back fit and get Kulusevski finding Werner early and he can time his runs, who knows? Maybe he might score some goals for Spurs, right? But the player I've seen over the last 3 years, I can't look at this deal positively. I just can't. And I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'll come back here and I would say, yep, I got it wrong with Werner. But I'm not going to pretend that I've watched something different over the last 3 years for the sake of it. Nah, sorry, that's not me. But anyway, football is what? A game of opinions, right? My opinion doesn't mean it's the be all and end all. It's just my opinion. You may have a differing opinion. Fine, it's cool. Football's a game of opinions. We're all allowed to have our opinion. One thing to note is this. Everyone always says, oh, but you can't judge players on that Chelsea stint. Chelsea's really toxic, really, really bad environment. Judge them outside of their Chelsea stints. Well, he left Chelsea, still stunk. I think he had like a 1 in 3, 1 in 4 scoring rate last season for Leipzig. This season, he's been benched by kids and other young G's that are shooting. He's only leaving Leipzig because he wants to go to the Euros. And when you look at the players that have left Chelsea, what have they gone on to? Kai Havertz, crap, stinks at Arsenal. Mason Mount doing niche at United. Kovacic, washed at Chelsea. At Man City now. Christensen, meh, at Barcelona. Ziyech, stinking out the joint at Galatasaray. Tammy Abraham, stinking out the joint at Roma. Yeah? Should I keep going? Should I keep going? Is it enough? Is it enough? Food for thought. Just my opinion. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Timo Werner.